My sister and I both finished med school at the same time, walked across the same stage, got handed the same degree, but somehow our parents decided only she deserved a clean slate. They paid off every penny of her student loans and didn't even acknowledge mine. She earned it more, honey, my mom said sweetly. But the real kicker came at her big debt-free bash. They had a surprise in store. She deserves it more, honey, Mom repeated, this time without even glancing up as she arranged a stack of overpriced cupcakes on one of those fancy tiered stands. Chloe's always been more focused on her academics. You've always had other things going on. That casual dismissal hit harder than a slap. I stood there in the kitchen I grew up in, still holding my framed medical degree like it might somehow change the conversation. Mom, I said, trying to stay calm, we both graduated with honors. Our GPAs were identical. I kept my voice even, but I could feel my fingers trembling just a bit. I don't understand. Why would you and Dad cover every cent of Chloe's debt and leave me with mine? Lena, my mom sighed, finally looking up, and there it was, that familiar look of mild disapproval she'd mastered over the years. Your sister doesn't have a wealthy mentor like Dr. Keller taking a special interest in her career. You've always had connections and advantages Chloe never had. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Dr. Naomi Keller wasn't some gift from the universe. She was my research advisor because I'd earned that spot after grinding through 80-hour weeks in the lab. Meanwhile, Chloe was off skiing in Aspen with our parents. My so-called advantage had been working myself into the ground while my twin got their love and money on a silver platter. So let me get this straight, I said, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. I'm being punished because I created my own opportunities? That's when Dad walked in and casually wrapped an arm around Mom's shoulders. No one's punishing you, Lena, he said. We're just being practical. Chloe needs the support more than you do. You've always been the one who figures things out, he added. Resourceful, that was the word they always tossed around to explain why they never showed up to my undergrad research symposiums, yet flew coast to coast for every one of Chloe's volleyball tournaments. Resourceful was why she got a brand new car for her 20th birthday while I got a gas station gift card tucked inside a folded napkin. And now, tomorrow was the big party for Chloe's achievement. Of course, it was their idea. They'd invited the whole extended family, her friends, even a few professors we both knew. The invitation said, celebrating Chloe's achievement, like graduating med school debt-free was some kind of personal milestone instead of the result of a financial choice made entirely by our parents. I've got to head out, I said, grabbing my bag and slinging it over my shoulder. Early shift at the hospital tomorrow. Will you still make it to Chloe's party? Mom asked. There was finally a flicker of concern in her voice, not for me, but for how my absence might cast a shadow on Chloe's perfect day. I'll be there, I promised, even though the thought made me sick to my stomach. As I walked out to my car, my phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Keller. Need to speak urgently about the Patterson Fellowship. Big news. I just stood there staring at the screen, the weight of realization sinking in. My parents' favoritism wasn't just a quiet injustice anymore, it was about to blow up into something humiliating and public. And there wasn't a thing I could do to stop it. Chloe and I had always lived parallel lives, yet it felt like we were on completely different tracks. We were twins, born just 6 minutes apart. I came first. She followed soon after, and according to family stories, I was the calm, curious one, while Chloe came out wailing and demanding attention. Maybe that was the start of everything. Growing up in Cleveland, Chloe was the outgoing twin, always surrounded by friends and excelling in every sport she tried. I was more reserved, the kid who got lost in books, spending hours at the public library devouring everything from astronomy to zoology. Our parents never missed one of her soccer games or dance recitals. My science fair wins? They earned me a polite, good job, Lena, and maybe a half-hearted pat on the head. By high school, the pattern was set in stone. When we both said we wanted to be doctors, our parents cheered for Chloe. For me? They sat me down for a serious talk about whether I could handle the pressure. Medical school's not just about brains, Lena, Dad warned. It's about resilience. Grit. Chloe's always had that fire in her. The irony was brutal. At Ohio State, I kept a perfect GPA while juggling part-time jobs to make ends meet. Chloe, meanwhile, needed pricey tutors for organic chem and physics, and our parents paid without hesitation. When she had to retake the MCT, they bought her into a top-tier prep course. I aced it on my first try, 95th percentile. Their reaction? That's nice, dear. Even after all of that, I never hated Chloe. She was still my sister. My twin. I loved her. It wasn't her fault our parents played favorites. She just happened to benefit from it. Sometimes, I thought she felt weird about it too, though she never said it out loud. We both got into the same med school in Michigan. For 4 grueling years, we pushed through side by side, supported each other during the toughest rotations, and celebrated every win together. I thought maybe, just maybe, our parents would finally see us as equals. But instead, they just found new ways to put her on a pedestal while brushing me aside. Like the time I was chosen to present my research at a national conference. That same weekend, Chloe won some community service award. Want to guess where our parents went? Everything changed in our final year when Dr. Naomi Keller, a legend in neurosurgery, took an interest in my work on pediatric traumatic brain injuries. With her in my corner, I thrived. For the first time, I had someone who truly saw me, not in spite of who I was, but because of it. You have a gift for research, Lena, she once told me. You notice patterns others miss. That kind of instinct can't be taught. If only my parents could see me through her eyes. The morning before Chloe's big celebration, I met Dr. Keller in her office. She was this striking woman in her 60s, silver hair, sharp blue eyes that seemed to cut right through you. Her office was a shrine to brilliance, awards, published research, photos with some of the greatest minds in medicine. Have a seat, Lena, she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. I have some incredible news. My heart started to race. I'd been holding my breath for weeks, waiting to hear about the Patterson Fellowship, the most prestigious neurosurgery research opportunity in the entire country. Only one graduating med student would be chosen. The committees made their decision, Dr. Keller said, her face unreadable. I held my breath, frozen in anticipation. They chose you, Dr. Keller said, and her face broke into a wide, proud smile. Congratulations, Dr. Lena Barrett. Baltimore. I was headed to Baltimore. A rush of emotions hit me all at once. Joy, disbelief, maybe even a little shock. And more than anything, I felt like I'd finally been seen. The Patterson Fellowship. The absolute peak for anyone in neurosurgical research. It was mine. I don't even know what to say, I stammered, my voice barely keeping up with the whirlwind in my chest. You earned this, Dr. Keller said, her voice firm with pride. Your work on neurovascular regeneration after traumatic brain injury was nothing short of groundbreaking. The selection committee was especially impressed by how you combine surgical techniques with pharmaceutical approaches. That kind of dual-method thinking? It's rare. On top of the prestige, the fellowship came with a generous stipend, a housing allowance, and best of all, total loan forgiveness. Just like that, I'd be debt-free too. But unlike Chloe, it wouldn't be because of anyone pulling strings. I got here through grit, sacrifice, and relentless work, not parental favoritism. There's more, Dr. Keller added, her eyes twinkling with something between amusement and strategy. I was invited to your sister's party tonight. A faculty courtesy, I assume. Your parents likely didn't realize our connection. I felt my stomach twist. I'd like to share the fellowship news there, she said gently. If you're okay with it. I hesitated, caught off guard. I don't know, I admitted. Tonight's supposed to be about Chloe. If my parents think I'm trying to upstage her, they'll twist it. Dr. Keller's smile faded, replaced by a more serious, knowing look. Lena, I've observed how your family operates. I've seen them at the hospital, heard the way they speak about you and your sister. She leaned forward slightly. Sometimes, if recognition isn't made public, it doesn't get acknowledged at all. She wasn't wrong. If I told them privately, they'd probably brush it off, chalk it up to luck, or worse, act like Dr. Keller was doing me a favor. I let out a slow breath and nodded. Okay, you can announce it. As I stepped out of her office, my phone buzzed with a message from Chloe. Mom's going way overboard tonight. It's embarrassing. Wish she'd done half this for both of us. You coming? Red Art. I just stood there, staring at the screen. It was the first time, ever, that Chloe had said anything hinting at the unequal treatment between us. Before I could reply, another text popped up, this one from our mother. Business casual tonight, please. And remember, let your sister have her moment. This is important to her. The contrast between those two messages hit hard. Maybe I'd been wrong about Chloe. Maybe she noticed more than I gave her credit for. Maybe tonight would finally peel back some truths my parents had been sweeping under the rug for the last 25 years. The celebration was at an upscale spot in downtown Detroit. My parents had splurged on the rooftop terrace, must have cost a fortune. When I stepped off the elevator, the first thing I saw was a huge banner, "Congratulations, Dr. Chloe." Not a word about there being two Dr. Barrett in the family now. I smoothed down the fabric of my navy blue dress, inhaled deeply, and stepped forward. No matter what happened, this was still Chloe's night. I wasn't going to let years of bitterness ruin the bond we'd always had as twins. Chloe spotted me instantly. She broke away from a group of extended family and hurried over. She looked radiant in a silver cocktail dress. Our hair was the same shade of blonde, but she wore hers in a stylish bob, while I kept mine long and sleek. Still, it was clear we were twins. "Thank God you're here," she said, linking her arm through mine. "Aunt Linda's asked me 5 times if I have a boyfriend yet." I laughed, even as my nerves buzzed beneath the surface. "What did you tell her?" "That I'm married to medicine. But if she knows any hot neurosurgeons, I'm accepting applications." Chloe rolled her eyes and glanced around. "Seriously though, this is nuts. Mom invited half the medical school. Dean Morgan's here." I scanned the terrace and, sure enough, saw the dean chatting with our dad. "Wow," I said. "They really went all out." "Too all out," she muttered. "It's kind of mortifying. And why just for me? We both graduated. We both put in the work." The knot in my stomach loosened a little. Maybe she did see what I'd been feeling all these years. "Chloe, Lena." Our mother swept over, champagne flute in hand. "Chloe, the Langstons just arrived. You remember Michael Langston, chief of surgery at Cleveland Memorial? You should come say hello." She took Chloe's arm and started pulling her away, then turned her head toward me. "Lena, could you check with the caterers? Your cousin Sophie's complaining again about gluten-free options." And just like that, I was back in my assigned role, managing the catering, while Chloe was led around like a prized guest of honor. Some things never changed. I was pointing out the right table to a group of waitstaff when Dr. Keller arrived. She looked stunning in a deep crimson pantsuit, sharp, composed, and impossible to miss. "Lena," she said, greeting me with a warm hug. "Are you ready for our little announcement?" I hesitated. "Honestly, I'm not sure. The timing feels complicated." Dr. Keller's eyes swept the terrace, the oversized banner with just Chloe's name, the elaborate cake, the slideshow that showcased Chloe at every age, with me barely in the frame like an afterthought. "I see," she said quietly. "More complicated than I expected." Across the way, I spotted my parents introducing Chloe to Dr. Helena Ortiz, the chief neurosurgeon at Detroit Medical Center. Both Chloe and I had applied for residency there. My stomach tightened. Were they trying to slide her into a position through personal connections? Dr. Keller, my dad's voice cut through the air as he approached, flanked by my mom and Chloe. "What an honor to have you here tonight." He shook her hand. "I understand you've done some work with Lena?" "Some work." Dr. Keller raised an eyebrow. Her voice was pleasant but cool. "Lena has been my lead research partner for the last 2 years. Her contributions to our study on traumatic brain injury were essential to its success." My parents glanced at each other, an unreadable expression passing between them. "How nice," my mother said vaguely. "Chloe's been very involved in neurosurgical research too. In fact, Dr. Ortiz just mentioned how impressed she was with Chloe's application." My cheeks flushed with anger. Chloe hadn't done neurosurgery research. Her focus was neuropsychiatry, completely different. And now my parents were spinning stories to make her look like the stronger candidate, even if it came at the expense of my credibility. Dr. Keller kept her tone polite, but I saw the steel in her gaze. "Is that so?" she said coolly. "That's interesting." I was under the impression Chloe's interests leaned toward psychiatric treatments, not surgical intervention. A heavy silence settled over our small circle, the kind that feels too loud. My little flicker of hope started to dim. I could already tell this announcement wasn't going to fix anything. If anything, it was just going to make everything worse. Dinner had started, with my parents seated proudly at the head table next to Chloe, our grandparents, and Dr. Ortiz. Me? I'd been assigned to a secondary table with a mix of cousins and family friends. Close enough to overhear, but not close enough to join in. We always knew Chloe was destined for great things, my dad was saying to Dr. Ortiz, his voice carrying. Even as kids, she stood out. Always driven, always ambitious. Every word hit like a pinprick to the heart. I just stared down at my plate, nudging the food around with my fork. Whatever appetite I'd had earlier was gone. Across the room, I caught Dr. Keller's eye. She offered a small, knowing smile, like she understood exactly what I was feeling. After dessert had been served, my dad stood and tapped his wine glass to get everyone's attention. "Thank you all for joining us tonight to honor our daughter Chloe and her incredible achievement," he said with a proud smile. Medical school is no easy path, and to come out on the other side not only with a degree but debt-free, that's something special. A polite round of applause followed. Chloe looked like she wanted to melt into her chair. "We've always believed in investing in Chloe's future," my mom chimed in, rising to stand beside him. "We knew she'd make us proud." I stared hard at my plate, blinking rapidly to keep the tears in. The phrasing stung. They hadn't said our daughters. Just Chloe. It was so clear, always had been. They invested in her, not me. Then, suddenly, Chloe stood up. "I'd like to say something," she announced, her voice steady. Her eyes met mine, and there was something soft in her gaze, regret, maybe. "This whole night feels incomplete," she said. "Lena and I both graduated. We had the exact same GPA. We both gave everything to get here. Honestly, Lena worked even harder, because she did it without the same support I had." The room fell into stunned silence. My mother's face went pale. "Chloe," she whispered sharply, "this isn't the time." "No, Mom," Chloe said firmly. "This is exactly the time. I won't accept praise that ignores my sister. It's never been fair, and I'm done pretending it is." My throat tightened. I couldn't speak. All I could do was stare, wide-eyed, as Chloe said the words I'd been aching to hear for years. She wasn't just seeing it, she was saying it. Out loud. In front of everyone. My father cleared his throat and tried to recover with a too cheerful tone. "Of course, we're proud of both our girls. Lena has done very well too. But tonight is about celebrating Chloe's debt-free achievement, which is, well, a rare and special milestone." Chloe didn't let him off the hook. "It's only special because you paid for it," she said calmly. "It's not something I earned on my own." You could feel the tension vibrating in the air. My parents' perfect family illusion was cracking right here, in front of their carefully chosen audience. That's when Dr. Keller rose from her chair. "If I may," she said, her voice cutting through the whispers with graceful authority. "I think now's the perfect time to share something many of you may not know about Lena." My parents shot each other worried glances. "Dr. Lena Barrett has been awarded the Patterson Fellowship at Johns Hopkins," she announced. For those unfamiliar, this is the most prestigious postgraduate research position in the country for a graduating medical student. It includes complete loan forgiveness and a very generous stipend. Gasps echoed around the room. Dr. Ortiz turned sharply to look at me, eyebrows raised with interest. Cousins who'd barely said 2 words to me all night were now whispering excitedly. And just to clarify, Dr. Keller added, Lena was selected based on her independent work in neurovascular regeneration. Her dual-method approach, combining surgical procedures with pharmacological treatment, was developed while she was balancing full-time clinical rotations. She paused to let that sink in. I've worked with many promising young physicians over the years, she said, but Lena stands out in a way few ever have. Her insight, her commitment, and her ability to recognize patterns others miss, it's truly exceptional. The applause that followed wasn't forced or polite. It was real, loud, proud, and it was for me. People were turning in their seats to look at me, smiling, nodding, clapping with genuine warmth. I felt my cheeks flush. I wasn't used to being the center of attention. My parents? They looked like statues. Frozen, shocked. Their expressions were a storm of confusion, disbelief, and something that looked a whole lot like regret. Their picture-perfect narrative had just unraveled, right in front of their friends and colleagues. Chloe beamed as she walked over to me, holding a glass of champagne. "Congrats, sis," she said, gently tapping her glass against mine. "The Patterson? That's incredible. Why didn't you say anything?" "I only found out this morning," I told her. "I didn't want to steal the spotlight tonight." She frowned. This ridiculous party was Mom and Dad's idea, not mine. I told them it was too much, especially since they didn't do the same for you. But you know how they are, once they lock into something. "You really said that?" I asked, genuinely surprised. "Of course I did." She looked hurt. "Lena, I've always known they treated us differently. I never knew how to bring it up without making it worse." Before I could respond, Dr. Helena Ortiz approached us with a curious smile. "Dr. Barrett," she said, eyes locked on me. I was very impressed by what Dr. Keller shared. "We should talk soon. Perhaps you'd consider continuing your research at our neurosurgery department instead of Johns Hopkins." My jaw dropped slightly. "Wow, that's incredibly flattering, Dr. Ortiz." Chloe laughed and threw an arm around my shoulder. "She's already accepted the Patterson," she said proudly. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Then she turned back to Dr. Ortiz, her smile widening. "But just so you know, my sister never stops at one breakthrough. I'd put money on her leading another groundbreaking project before she's even unpacked in Baltimore." Dr. Ortiz chuckled. "Well then, I'll be watching closely." "Well, when your fellowship wraps up, I hope you'll keep Detroit in mind," Dr. Ortiz said with a polite smile. "We'd be lucky to have you. Both of you, really, in your respective specialties." She gave Chloe a nod, then walked off into the crowd. I turned to my sister, still kind of stunned. "You didn't have to do that," I said quietly. "I know you wanted to stay here for your residency." "And I still can," Chloe replied with a shrug. "But I won't do it by letting Mom and Dad pull strings or by standing by while you miss out on something you earned. That's not the kind of doctor or person I want to be." Across the room, I noticed our parents finally getting up from their table, slowly making their way toward us. They looked hesitant, stopping every few feet as guests intercepted them to talk about me, a rare moment, and one they clearly didn't know how to handle. "Here they come," Chloe murmured. "You ready?" "Not even close," I admitted. When they reached us, my dad was the first to speak. "Dr. Keller certainly had some impressive things to say about you," he said carefully, his tone walking the line between proud and bewildered. "The Patterson Fellowship, that's quite an honor." "Why didn't you tell us you were being considered for something that prestigious?" my mom asked, and I caught the edge of blame hiding in her voice. I looked at them both and said softly, "Would it have made a difference? You've always shown where your attention and your belief really lies." They shared a stiff, uncomfortable glance. "That's not fair," my dad said, trying to maintain calm. "We've always supported you both." "Differently," my mother cut in quickly. "We supported each of you in the ways you needed." Chloe shook her head and stepped in. "Mom, Dad, maybe not tonight. But this conversation? It's happening. And it's going to be honest this time. No more pretending." She gave me a glance full of quiet resolve. It was the first time I'd ever felt like we were truly on the same side. Dr. Keller appeared at my side then, a welcome interruption. "Lena, the dean would like a word. He wants to highlight your fellowship in the alumni magazine." She turned toward my parents and gave them a pleasant smile that didn't quite reach her sharp eyes. "You must be incredibly proud," she said. "Raising two such accomplished daughters." especially seeing Lena's achievements recognized after everything she's had to overcome. The word overcome was subtle, but it landed like a stone. My parents flinched just slightly, but it was enough. Well, my mom said weakly, we've always known Lena was special. Too little. Too late. The week that followed felt like a transformation. Word about the Patterson Fellowship made its way through the medical community like wildfire. Suddenly, doors that had once been firmly shut cracked wide open. Professors who'd brushed me off or made excuses for Chloe were now sending emails filled with congratulations. Former classmates who'd barely acknowledged me in the halls of med school were reaching out like we'd been best friends for years. And my parents? They were scrambling to patch things up. They showed up the day after the party, unannounced, gift bags in hand, and those strained, hopeful smiles they wore when they wanted something. We've been thinking, my dad began, setting a small box on my coffee table. Now that both of you are starting your careers, we thought we should get something special for each of you. Inside the box was a rose gold watch, the exact same one they'd given Chloe for her birthday 6 months ago. It's beautiful, I said flatly, making no move to pick it up. Though a little late. My mom's face faltered. Lena, we know you've felt overlooked at times. But everything we did, it was because we knew you were strong enough to handle things on your own. Chloe needed more help. That's a convenient story, I said, keeping my tone even. But it doesn't explain why you skipped every one of my presentations, but flew out for all of hers. Why you paid for her MCT prep, but told me to watch YouTube videos. Why you covered her rent, but told me to take out more loans. We only had so much money, my dad said quickly. We had to make hard choices. And you made them, I replied, nodding. Over and over. And every single time, you chose Chloe. My mother's eyes welled with tears. We love you both the same. Maybe I said. But you sure didn't treat us the same. And no watch, no sudden burst of attention is going to undo years of that. Just then, my phone rang, Dr. Keller calling to go over the logistics of my move to Baltimore. I picked up without hesitation. Hi, yes, I'm available now to talk about housing. Actually, your timing's perfect. 3 weeks later, I stood in my now empty apartment, surrounded by boxes ready for the moving truck. Chloe sat on the windowsill, watching me seal up the last box of books. I still can't believe you're leaving next week, she said softly. Detroit's not going to be the same without you. You'll be too busy starting residency to notice I'm gone, I joked, trying to keep it light, but we both knew the truth. After years of being joined at the hip, our paths were finally splitting. She was staying at Detroit Medical. I was heading to Johns Hopkins. Chloe stared out the window for a moment, thoughtful. I keep thinking about everything Mom and Dad did, or didn't do, I guess. I used to think I was lucky, getting all their attention. But now I realize it kept me dependent. Like I couldn't move without their approval. I sat down next to her and nudged her shoulder. You didn't do anything wrong, Jess. I didn't do enough right either, she said with a sigh. I should have spoken up a long time ago. She looked over at me, eyes soft. They're devastated, you know. Mom keeps crying, saying you must hate them. And Dad? He's been bragging to everyone about his daughter at Johns Hopkins, like he funded your whole career. Let them, I said, and to my own surprise, I meant it. It didn't sting anymore. Their approval doesn't define me now. And it was true. That quiet, aching part of me that had always longed for their validation, it had finally gone quiet. Dr. Keller had shown me what real support looked like, consistent, challenging, and full of belief, even when I doubted myself. What about us? Chloe asked gently. Where do we go from here? I reached over and took her hand. We moved forward. But this time, without the rivalry they planted between us. Chloe smiled, squeezing my fingers. I like that plan, Dr. Lena Barrett, Patterson Fellow. A warmth spread through me. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt completely at peace. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was mine. And I finally had the space and the strength to walk it on my own terms.